We are live. All right, we have Dr. Adrian McIntyre and Mr. William Wong and Rose Chastain. We're going to figure out what are we doing here with this conversation we think can make a difference, and maybe we can turn this into something that can make a difference and can make money, because we want everything.
Hey, speaking of wanting everything, I got to tell you guys, I'm super pumped. I bought an Aston Martin the other day.
Oh, yeah.
And one of these days, I'm going to take it out. Seriously, though, dream car. It's a lot cheaper than I thought it was going to be. Actually, it was on sale for 79 cents at the grocery store.
That's awesome.
But I hear the maintenance is really expensive, so we'll see how it goes. But it just goes to show you can have
anything you
want, just not always at scale.
That's right. You might have to be a little more specific about what you're creating there.
Right, exactly.
That's your visual reminder, so that you can see.
I think I'm going to do that myself, and I have fallen in love with Corvettes. I see them everywhere, so I think I'll have to get one of those. Brilliant idea.
Take up golf,
mm-hmm.
because then you will be an old white man at that point. You know.
I live in Alameda. So, I'm doing pretty good in that direction.
What do you need a Corvette for when the speed limit's 35 miles an hour and it's enforced?
No,
yeah,
25.
25.
25. Maybe that's why I got tickets.
Yes, and it's enforced strictly.
I literally, you guys, I know this is not the intention of our call, but I want you to know my experience of Alameda. So I was going to a funeral there, and I drove across one of the bridges coming from my place in Oakland back when we lived there. I don't remember which bridge, but literally I came across the bridge and passed the first street and got pulled over.
Welcome to Alameda.
You didn't see the sign.
Yeah, well, at that time, this is a number of years ago, I was still a graduate student, and I was driving this beat up Toyota pickup truck that was like a farm truck. It was one of the little ones and had a lumber rack on the back. And I mean, it was like, vehicular profiling instantly. I was pulled over. Anyway.
Vehicular profiling. I like that.
So here we are, and we've got the world's attention for a brief minute.
Exactly.
And we're going to talk about creating, right?
Yeah. And I would like, because I think it makes a difference. There's so many people that have the kind of experience that you've had and been having, and don't know where to go from there. They get stuck there, They don't know how to connect to something outside themselves or to find themselves in a conversation. And if we could bottle and sell that as much as they sell antidepressants, we'd be very, very wealthy people. But there is a real power to being able to do that. So it'd be great if you could talk a bit about, why you reached out, what there was to create, and then we can talk about what we want to create.
All right, perfect. I don't know about you, but for me as a human, I'm not always paying attention to my own humanness. I'm doing what I'm doing and I'm thinking what I'm thinking, but I'm not necessarily thinking about what I'm thinking or looking at what I'm doing from some sort of view other than inside it. And so a few months ago, I started to realize that I was really unhappy and I was really struggling. And I was struggling emotionally. I was even, becoming depressed physically in the sense of having no energy. And I thought, well, what's happening here? And I started to realize that I was chasing something because I thought it was the right thing in my business. And specifically what I mean by that is, in the past, I've done a lot of client services work because people showed up and they needed stuff and I could provide it. And so we would come to some arrangement and I would start providing it, whether it was marketing technology services or copywriting or a whole business strategy development or, creating content for their business as an editor, a ghostwriter, video production guy, just a lot of technical skills that I have because I'm a kind of a geek, but that's not my core thing. All right. But I was doing those things. And then, those relationships would go the way they would go. Sometimes people would be happy. Sometimes, and this is something for anybody who works in client services, I realized that I'd been taking certain things for granted in our relationship. And so when there were breakdowns on their side, in other words, they weren't delivering what they had said they were going to do by when and all these things, I was just sort of accommodating them, thinking that was the right way to go, right? Like, okay, no problem. Well, when are you going to get that to me?
Great service in the name of service or something.
Yeah, in service and like partnership, but like being a good guy, kind of like, wanting to work with them. I would sign up, for example, a client to, like an 8-month contract, and then 3 months in, they'd have a crisis in their own family. They needed to put things on hold for a bit to, like real life stuff. Even though, as a cultural anthropologist, right, I should know things about human beings. And even though somebody who's really worked in public since I was 5, because my family was my dad ran a radio station and I grew up in the public eye, was on the radio starting from the age of 5. We traveled a lot to speak and engage. So, we've always lived this engaged public life. I wasn't thinking as much as I could have been about the kind of human dynamics of business. And really what I mean by that is that when you're signing up to work with somebody for some length of time, you're both going to be in each other's real lives, not just in the business aspect. Like what happens in my life, affects
you're going to deal with the cars breaking down and the kids getting sick and
all of it.
Someone not paying, all that stuff.
Exactly. Some of it will be low grade stuff and some of it will be really intense for them. And they're going to have, it's going to throw things into question. And here's where the pitfall actually was. And I want to make it clear. I'm not trying to shift blame or responsibility for this to them. This is where I failed to see that there was a potential pitfall. And that is by accommodating things and sort of, taking, well, it's okay. Well, let me do that for you. And I'll do the inevitable scope creep of our work together grew, and the sense that they had that there was a bottleneck in the relationship and it was me, not them, became an ongoing issue, right? Anyway, long story short, I'm not speaking about any one past client here, but this has been a pattern.
Yeah.
So I started to rethink, as I'm completing my work with people and getting them what they promised or even more than I had promised, to try to leave people as best as possible. I started to question, well, what am I actually doing in business? What's the purpose of this? And it sort of hit me right between the eyes as something really obvious that I just wasn't seeing. And that is that if I really look for myself at what it is that makes me most alive, what it is that makes me like feel like a worthwhile, happy, contributing human being, it is not working behind a computer in somebody else's business for 18 plus hours a day. It is not, being a back of the room, behind the scenes tech support person. There are many people in the world that have incredible gifts in that area, and they should be doing that if that fulfills them. It's just not me.
Yeah.
And, like the fact that we're having this conversation now, and and I'm excited for no reason because we don't even know what we're going to talk about, is an indicator of the fact that this is the environment where I come alive. And what I realized is it doesn't serve me to not serve others in this way. Mm-hmm. And I had sort of taken well, this is right in front of me and I can do it, so maybe that's what I'm doing approach. Right?
Yeah. Well, that's a common thing for anybody who, wants to pay their bills and support their family, is that they would be tempted by what's in front of you, whether it's consistent with your vision and your direction or not,
Well, I think that's the real challenge.
Yeah.
Actually, because we as human beings are not designed to be very effective at putting future needs above immediate pressures, right?
Yes.
We tend to live in a very immediate environment where we're reacting to potential threats. That's the design of the brain of a human being, right? Our brains are scanning the horizon, looking for potential threats, figuring out how to respond or react to them. And it's this inability to kind of live our life from what the future self needs and wants that, you know, has, I think all of us struggle with anything, whether it's finances or weight or health or, you know, anything at all. Right here in the present moment, we want this, or we think we need this, and it seems urgent. It seems like this is the right thing to do.
Yes.
And in hindsight, we're like, what was I thinking? And the fact that that happens over and over again to everybody lets you know it's not personal.
Right.
Okay. This is not a moral failing on your part.
Right.
This is part of what it is to be human. And then I don't think we think about that implications of that.
No. William, what do you have to say about this conversation so far? What is your...
I could say what?
I was gonna say you look very mysterious. You look very exotic.
Well, oh gosh, so many things I heard, so many things I can say. It's a matter of where to start. Well, I can just start with saying what's there. It's like, you know, a future, as we, the three of us know, it's the future that we're living into, that we created, that gives us how the world occurs to us in the present moment. When we don't create a future or are not present to that created future, it defaults to something pretty ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually, you know, why am I doing this? I don't even know why I'm doing this. I hate doing this. This sucks.
Mm-hmm.
We just get, I think, swallowed up into the default negativity, depression, no joy, no satisfaction, you know, no thrill, no life, no aliveness, you know, in the task that you're doing, in the physical doing of whatever that is, which really sucks. But that's kind of like, I forgot how you said it, Adrian. It's like you're going about, you're not even paying attention to what's going on, what we're doing, because we're not. We're somewhere else.
That's the thing right there that I think is worth exploring. We're somewhere else.
We're somewhere else.
So we've all three been trained in ways of thinking and in conceptual toolkits for disrupting the normal default mode of what it is to be human. And it doesn't matter that we have that background, because it's not about something you learn or know. It's really about a practice. What fascinates me is to realize that the brain is a projector in ways, and this has profound implications that we aren't thinking about. And I include all of us, right? Not just civilians, right? So we're not thinking about the fact that our brain is not only projecting a future, it's also projecting a past and a present.
Yes.
So we really are living inside a complete bubble of language and perception that we don't know. Like we're like the Truman Show every single day, right? Except for it's not great and happy. It's, you know, a world of perceived threats and challenges and, you know, dangers and so on. And we live like that was true in the past, and we live like it's going to be true in the future. And what we're not thinking at all about is the present, because we're not here, like William said.
We're you know, we're always, here's the simple one. We're either in the future or we're in the past.
Yeah.
Where we actually are, oh, well, that's nice. You know?
Or something. It's just like,
I don't know, this could be, I don't know, going out on a limb here. I sit here and says, you know, when a human being is present and nothing else, no past, no future, there's no language there, so they can't talk. I love. I always talk about this one commercial of Michael Jordan making this basket and then running down the sidelines to his bench, and he goes, "I don't know how I made that." Because most of the time, I'm going to sit here and say he is so present to that moment. Yeah, he makes these ridiculous shots, and then he's no longer present to that moment, and he's in the moment called talking about what just happened. And it's like, I don't know. I got to go back there to talk about what happened over there. But what happened over there, it's going so fast. By the time you talk about it, it's over.
Yes. You know, I'm struck in this conversation by a connection I hadn't made before. There is an entire body of work in psychology, in literary studies, in philosophy that talks about trauma. Okay. And in this, from a variety of different perspectives, psychoanalytic, neuroscientific, et cetera, the ways of trying to understand trauma, because one of the phenomena in the world of trauma is that it's not experienced directly. Okay. Going all the way back to Sigmund Freud's writing about in Beyond the Pleasure Principle about a train wreck, and a person walks away from the train wreck and doesn't remember what just happened because something about that experience, he theorized, exceeded language. Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's that something about that experience was so outside of the realm of evaluation, interpretation, judgment, etc., that there was no theory or explanation of it till later. And then you think back about it. Ironically, this is the same way, and this is the connection I just made, that people talk about flow states in positive psychology. In other words, being so absorbed in the moment, being fully present. Michael Jordan sinking the basket, right? And then saying, I don't even know how I did that. Or, you know, any interview with a sort of ordinary hero on the street, you know, the person who runs into the burning building and grabs the kids or the kittens or whatever and comes out, and then they say, what were you thinking? And they say, I wasn't thinking anything. I don't know. I wasn't thinking.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking is exactly what's going on at both ends of this spectrum, right? The traumatic and the purely joyful practice flow state in the moment. And so the pitfall, ironically, is too much not thinking or too much thinking.
Yes.
Both get us in trouble.
Yes. Exactly.
We are trying to navigate through the world with these crazy blinders of language on. There's no outside of language for a human being. There's no way to encounter the world as it is. And we're going to bring this back to business, by the way, because I think the implications here are really interesting and really profound. There's, you know, like I always say when I'm talking about the power of language, you know, you can have a chair, all right, and you can call it a red chair or a broken chair. You can call it your favorite chair. You can call it an antique chair. You can call it an uncomfortable chair. You can say, I hate this chair. The chair doesn't care. Whatever description you apply to it, right, does not change the way it is just chairing, right? The way that particular physicalness is in the world.
The way it sits there, the way it's letting you use it.
It's not bothered by what you say about it.
Yes.
And fundamentally, that's the difference between the human self and any physical thing. The human self is fundamentally comprised of statements about it that one makes to oneself, that one makes to others, and that others make, that feed back in the way people interact with you. It is entirely a linguistic phenomenon, and we forget that.
Yeah. Look, yeah. Well, also,
by the way, I know that it's Monday and we've gone heavy, but this is actually, I think,
that's cool.
The implications of this are quite profound.
Yeah.
Because William, maybe you wanted to say something. I can pause my excitement for a second. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Keep going.
So as we look at our business, or as we work with others in business from a commitment that they are, you know, on fire, whatever that means for them, that their experience of themselves is one of effectiveness, of, you know, happiness and joy, whether they're actually making stuff happen, that their people are loving their work, that their customers or clients or patients or whoever are feeling served by the business, and that the business is flourishing in the sense of it's making a lot of money, its profitability is up.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows that making a lot of money does not necessarily mean making an increased profit. So, there's a lot going on. The operations become more efficient. There's, less breakdowns in process. There's less breakdowns in relationships. It's flourishing, right?
Yeah.
And money is a great scorecard for that in business, because
it's
money
one of the scoreboards.
It's neutral. I mean, money is literally the most value neutral thing in the world, unless you get a human talking about it, in which case it's like the most complicated, tangled up, shameful, whatever kind of thing.
That's right.
But money as money, right, is literally just an indicator. It's value neutral, right? It's a medium of exchange. That's a whole other riff. And in any business, you've got the business itself, you got the business as a business, and you got the business owner and operator, right? And to the extent there's other people on the team, you got them in the mix too. But really, it starts at the top. To the extent to which, go ahead.
I just have the perfect example that while you're saying this, and that is out of the work that William has been doing with me since we've been working together. In the last year, I have quadrupled the revenue sources I have since started working with William. And in this conversation, William, I was just realizing what actually happened was you created a reality and a real conversation about who I am and what I can produce. And it was a new conversation. And the moment that new conversation, I believed you, because you sound like you know what you're talking about. And then I started taking different actions. And then all of a sudden, because it's occurred for me, like, all these people showed up all the time. Where were they a couple of years ago? Where were these people then? And the thing that changed, this is a perfect illustration of what you're saying. The thing that changed is William started saying, no, you are this. You're a badass. You can handle this. You're perfect for these people. You can, take on this kind of client. And it sort of became a new reality now. Or it became a new reality in my past and the future, and now started to line up with it. It's a perfect example of what it is and what we provide as coaches and consultants to people who are in business or want to be in business, is that we can work with them to create a reality that they've designed, not just a fantasy.
Every action we take is embedded in a context of language, and we don't know that. And even those of us who help others with that don't always live like that's the truth.
Absolutely.
Right? And just like any behavior is very difficult to change without changing the physical environment, because the triggers, the cues for that behavior are embedded in context. That context includes our own emotional state, our own physical state, but also the physical place where we are. People who really want to go on a radical weight loss program should probably gut their kitchen, put the refrigerator on the other side of the room. That alone would change everything, because we're so much of our behavior is unconscious. So what we provide, to the extent that we do this, is an opportunity to redesign the conversational environment. People are operating their business mostly, and I'm just as guilty of this as anybody. We're mostly operating our business in a conversational environment that lives between our ears.
I was actually going to say, here's the fantasy problem right here.
Yeah.
Because what I always say to people, no, you're not dealing with reality. It's out here.
Right.
Get out here. But be very careful. Don't be in here about out here.
Yeah.
You got to get out here.
And the only way to do that is to actually change the dynamic. So instead of you talking to you about you, add another trained participant to that conversation, a trained facilitator in that conversation.
Yes.
It's not always that we know best what somebody else should do, although a lot of the time, I don't know how you guys run your business advisory services, but I think the model of a coach is somebody who doesn't have to know anything and just asks the right questions is a really good model if you're in the business of selling coaching training. because then nobody has to have any qualifications. You can simply take anybody and say, we'll help you become a coach, right?
That's great, Adrian.
I'm not disrespecting that industry, but you have to understand it in its context. In the early 80s, when coach schools became a phenomenon, part of the way to create a market for that was to define coaching as something that anybody could do if only they were taught how to ask the right questions. When it comes to business, there are many technical disciplines. There are many actual bodies of knowledge, best practices that an advisor, a skilled advisor, consultant, partner, mentor, I don't really care what the label is, right? Somebody can say, interesting. Have you thought about this? Oh, no, I haven't. How does that work? And then they can tell you, right? And then you can decide if that's a strategy or a process, or a set of techniques that you want to implement or not. So as we're designing these kind of interactions with clients, solely from the commitment that they flourish, and in the process, we flourish, which brings us back full circle to where we started. We're not flourishing. I think I speak for all of us. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think I speak for all of us when I say something in us suffers if we're not serving. And there's probably a whole class of people like that. And then there are also other people that don't have this wiring. I know, I meet them all the time.
We find ourselves and
serving, right?
We know ourselves when we're serving. We come to life.
Exactly. Literally sometimes. And that was my experience that I was sharing with Rose. When I was in this sort of dark place for a few months, having lost my way because I thought I needed to go down a certain path and it wasn't working, right? What I realized is very obvious. And it's something that, we used to say in programs or, an environment that we're all familiar with from our past, that, get your attention off yourself and onto other people. Right?
It's that
such
simple.
a simple thing, but it's so easy to forget that, looking over here, there's an endless opportunity to discover misery and confusion and despair. I mean, literally, like Dungeons and Dragons, unlimited role-playing game to infinity. Like there's a 1,000-sided die. Like there's just a million different moves. Ironically, at the same time, making one's process of self-discovery also focused inward is a major pitfall. In other words, if all people are you can become highly interested in uncovering new layers of inauthenticity, to coin a phrase.
Yes.
And that can become what you do now. And then all you do is that. Right. And I just want to say to people, a little off topic here, but I just want to say to people, you're not an onion. There literally are no layers, okay? That's a ridiculous metaphor that serves people who want you to do more courses or programs or coaching or whatever, because and serves you. This is the part that's actually, I'm not a cynic about that business model. I think it's great if you can make it work. But for the person, it doesn't serve you to be on an endless quest of self-discovery. What are you doing today? I'm peeling more layers. Oh, isn't that precious? Get your attention off you and on others. And that's the path to something that, is unknown, but potentially quite interesting. Anyway, I get off my high horse here.
Well, it's really great because I took on that I was going to complete all this stuff from the past and become somebody who was a more true expression of who I really am. Just more badass and more creating things in the world. And the process of that has been a mostly disempowering process of, there's more things I'm not doing. Oh, more things I'm not doing. Oh, more things where I'm full of shit, or another layer, and until, I don't know, recently, I really got that this is actually the package I'm in right now.
Yep.
With these sorts of realities and these kinds of reactions, and some of them I hate, some of them are convenient, some of them are great, whatever. All these different manipulations I do, whatever it is that my package comes with right now. And nothing I wish or do is going to change that that's the current package that I'm in. However, I get to have all of the say about my experience of life and what I say is going to be important, you know? And that all of these things that I'm trying to hold on to, protect, make sure it goes a particular way, really is an extreme arrogance on my part, in that I think I get to design the way the world and all of humanity go, and myself and included, and you know that somehow I have the control to do all of that thing. But exactly to what you were speaking of, self-reflection and distinguishing things is very powerful, because then you have a new context, you can take new actions. But if the context of all of that is there's something fucked up about me and I need to fix it, and if I can get to the core of the onion, then it'll all be okay. That context has you never actually get to have the power that's available when you see these things. Because you're always digging. You're never just like, no, you know what? This is perfect. Look at what this is. This is perfect.
Yeah. This
particular package has all sorts of stuff it comes with, right? And nobody could possibly imagine this combination, right? and then so now given that, what kind of life am I going to have? And so then I get to actually create that now. And that's the trick, because I am a consultant and I'm a coach. I'm also committed to being coachable, which is both things are a state of digging and digging and digging for more and more and more what's at the core of this humanity. And at the same time, if I never did anything again, and this is the way I was for the rest of the life, that was be perfectly fine.
Right. I think one quick thing here, William, is that I think that first of all, a healthy curiosity into one's own wacky weirdness can get the ball rolling, because anything that has you stop taking for granted things that you thought were obvious or permanent is useful. That same thing can, of course, become an unhealthy obsession where one's only interested in digging, digging, digging. Somewhere along the way, we have to realize, oh, here's what I've discovered. I'm not special. and I'm this unique expression of something that is just purely human. In other words, you have both sides at the same time.
Yeah.
You have your total and utter insignificance. Think of how many people are alive on this planet right now, right? Close to 8 billion.
Yes.
A lot of human beings, right? It's a lot of thoughts, a lot of emotions, a lot of experience. Now somehow think of how many people have been alive since Homo sapiens took on the form they have, let's say 185,000 years ago, give or take, a millennia or two. That's a lot of people, most of whom are unknown, unremembered, and for all practical purposes, non-existent. Every single one of them had the same human makeup as we do, so they must have thought about their future and their past and their family and their legacy and every other thing, and it made no difference, right? The only thing you have in common with a snowflake is that you will melt and vanish, and that's it. It's over. So then the question is, all right, well, if I'm nothing special, if I'm completely and utterly insignificant, the universe doesn't give a flying fuck about me. Then at the same time, here I am with my own unique and weird and wacky wonderfulness. Yeah. Now what? So any conversations that can provoke this, and because we all need reminders from time to time, that might be an ongoing thing. What I said it was going to be quick, didn't I? This is not quick. Ultimately, what I think we need to do this for ourselves. We need to do this for our clients. We need to do this for other people around us, is co-create simple tools. Again, being human, this is our core skill set. Okay, co-create simple tools that will allow us to do periodic diagnostics on the health and vitality of the system, right? Whether it's our personal system, our financial system, our business, our health, whatever, right? We need ways to check in from time to time and identify areas of opportunity.
That's really good.
Well, and then get back to work, because it's not about the diagnosis, it's about the action that follows it.
William, we need a 4 pillars checklist.
No, if you just checked in occasionally.
Yeah.
No. And what I mean by check in is stop and look around and see where I'm at.
Right. And the checklists or any other structures that we can create are simply reminders of places to look.
Yeah. Well, we've designed this structure that really does set up a client to have a successful business. It's everything that you need to know.
Yeah.
And manage to have a successful business. But one piece that we haven't done that I just saw in this conversation is every 6 months, here's your audit.
Yes.
Put this in your schedule now. Here's your 6-month audit where you look at the health of your life, your relationship, your business.
You stop and you look, okay. Mm-hmm. See, by default, we already have the default. It looks like this.
That's the default.
That's the human being default. And then you make up something. Oh, yeah, that's me. That's who I am. Yeah, uh-huh. Then you start being in action and going to work on becoming that. Because you know you're not that. And you go along. And you either fail or you make it, but chances are you fail. And then you beat yourself up. You make yourself wrong. What a waste of time. Woe is me. You get depressed, blah, 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 blah. Completely forgetting that, wait a minute, I made that up. I made up that that's who I was. Because by default, we already know. We're just going to, whatever. That's it. We're fine. There's nothing we have to do. That's it. That's life. Now, you played a game and made something different, better, more, whatever. It just wasn't, this is it. I'm fine and this is it. I can sit here for the rest of my life on this rock, pontificate. But wait a minute, I'm going to go over there. It'll be like,
Maybe the frogs are tastier in that pond.
Yeah, maybe. But then, this is really thing. What I'm kind of like not stuck on, but noticing it's like, wow, we forget. We forget that we make up something, and then we use it to completely disempower ourselves and make ourselves small. And we started from, fuck, man, there's anything I could do.
Yeah. Well, what I was sharing about earlier and how I've been digging into this onion, and I have been severely disappointed with myself in terms of the success of my business, and that it's just been, an average growth, and there's so much missing. There's more missing than not missing.
That's a good thing.
Exactly. But the thing that I missed inside of that was that I made up one day about 7 years ago that I was going to quit working with people and I was going to have my own business. And I have run my own business for 7 years. And most people don't ever get to do that. And I missed that I have run a business that has supported me for 7 years. That's successful. That's the dream. That's living the dream. And
you missed the fact that you didn't have to get up, be at a place every Monday morning, punch a time clock, and say, right, okay, I'll be here until you tell me I can leave.
Right. Or like just this morning, I decided not to go where I was going and stay here instead, to have that choice and to be able to create it and to be able to take a day to design my business or have conversations like this. That's, something I made up and said, I think I'm going to do that. And then decided to, and then did it. And I get to say about, am I going to experience for myself how cool that is that I've done that? Or am I going to experience how much I suck that it's not a multi-million-dollar business yet?
You really need to get yourself an estimate.
Exactly.
Telling you nothing proves success externally like cars. So I have mine with me at all times. I can just, when I pull up somewhere in my Mazda, I know I am in an Aston Martin.
That's awesome. Okay, well, I think that this conversation I think that rather than tying it up and saying that this is where it's going to go, I think we should just keep having them.
Cool.
And see where it goes. Does that work for you too?
It works for me. Let me, if I can, steer us at the end towards something quite practical, right? Which is that practical.
So that makes sense.
For us as business advisors, mentors, consultants, or in my case, speaker, trainer, workshop facilitator, somebody who's actually working on the people dynamics inside the company as well as their relationship with the market.
Which fits all three of us, by the way.
Yeah. So, but I mean, one of the things I realized was I needed to, and I wasn't explicit about this earlier. I needed to shift what I'm doing from the behind the scenes stuff to the front of the room stuff. Not for my ego, but because that's where I'm alive. And also that's where I make it an extraordinary difference, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people that could do some of the things I was trying to do as good, if not better, right? But I know that when it comes to speaking, training, coaching, and leading from the front of the room, I'm in a class of, world-class elites when I'm doing that. And the fact that I'm not is like, it's wrong for me to not be there. That's all I meant. Not that the same doesn't apply. So whatever it is we're doing has to find its expression in offers. Something that someone can look at. Hey, this is what I have. Here's how I've put it together, and here's what you can get. Right? Here's the promise implicit in this offer of service or of training or of whatever. And the same applies to, of course, the people that we work with. The way that they're designing the actual offerings in their business, their products, their services, their programs, whatever they have, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a level of design thinking, of strategic insight that comes when we bring the conversation that we've just been having to that fairly practical, how the rubber meets the road for people thing. And I don't ever want to lose sight of that because, Rose, you started this conversation by saying, whether it was in the green room beforehand or when we were live, I don't remember, but you said there's ways we think about creating and the process of creation that are distinct. And so applying that to, in other words, we don't want to just simply be people who have these fancy ideas about life and language and human being and, all the various concepts and tools that we have available to us from a variety of disciplines. And then at the end of the day, have it in a I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but in a mundane, ordinary, run-of-the-mill experience for people. So thinking how to bring those two worlds together is kind of what I'm interested in that. Yeah. And discussing that further.
Yes. Me too.
So what's next?
Huh? Yes.
Smart man.
William was so present in that moment, he wasn't thinking.
He was just being.
Yes.
Michael
Jordan of business.
Right. It's like, man, hence the term, we're in our head. We're either in our head or we're not. Mm. And for most of the time, I'm going to say, go out on a limb here. Most of the time, I'm in my head. Human beings are in their head. At least I know it, though. I think that's an advantage because I know I'm in my head. It's like, okay, then I can always go like, excuse me, can you say that again?
So on that note, I think that we should continue to talk about what is it to bring together something practical you deliver and a conversation about creating and delivering that something practical, if that made sense there. But
totally.
One of the pieces I think that's unique about how the three of us create is that we don't have to force the issue to have it turn into looking like one particular thing.
Yeah. There's one thing I want to say. when Adrian was talking about coaching and something in the 80s or whatever, this thing started evolving and da 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 da. And it's so funny. As I coach people, I go like, look, I don't know anything. I'm not a clue. They'll look at me like, no, you do. I'm like, no, I don't. All I do is I become a mirror and I just show you what you can't see. That's all I am, is a mirror. And here you go. And I go, and don't take it out on me. I'm just the mirror. I'm just going to show you and tell you what you can't see or what you won't see or don't want to see, probably more importantly. So.
That's more than a passive reflection, though. So don't lose sight of the fact that a true mirror lets the same pair of eyes do all the seeing. So quite literally, when you're looking in a mirror, your eyes are catching light, bouncing back at you. And so you are doing all of the analysis, interpretation, judgment, etc. Do I look good in this? Do I need to fix my whatever? Right? And all of us, of course, can never see the back of our own head. And even with a mirror, it's the same eyes doing the seeing. So it's a little bit, although I think it's a powerful metaphor, it's a little bit of an abdication of responsibility as well, because you're not merely mirroring. You are, in fact, saying what they wouldn't say to themselves.
Yeah.
You are, in fact, telling them the uncomfortable but direct feedback that, well, that sounds great, and it's bullshit. And you know it. So tell me something else. That it's more than a mirror, in other words. And so, yes, I agree with the metaphor, and you're more than that.
Yeah.
And as the mirror, you also you are picking and choosing what you're reflecting and what you're showing and where you're going.
Yes.
In terms of
what those things. Like personally for me, it's like, okay, I'm always like, where do I get the most bang for my buck? Where's the most leverage point? Where can I just push one ball and then the domino effect happens? And poof, there we go. Magic happens.
Yes. And listening for those opportunities is something you've honed a lifetime of experience, training, discovery, inquiry, etc. In other words, part of, the story about the guy who goes in to fix a expensive engine in a boat, and he takes out his hammer and bangs the back of it, and the engine starts working again and submits the bill, and it's, like $87,000 or something. The guy's like, what? Like, you were only in there for like 5 seconds and you hit it with a hammer. The guy goes, oh, I'm sorry, let me itemize your bill for you. And so he says, the 5 seconds it took to hit the thing, $49, the lifetime of experience and to know where to hit it.
Exactly.
$86,950.
Exactly.
So, I butcher the details, but that's the idea.
No,
anyway.
no, that's exactly. It's like, yeah, it took that long, but my gosh, 86,000 years of experience. Or what I like to do, tell people, is like, yeah, but you know how often I failed? I said, that's why I love failing, because I learn from my failures.
Yes. Yes, sir. All right. So till next time.
Right. Yeah.
Till next time. And until next time. Exactly.
All right. This was fun, you guys.